Welcome everyone to 10.0.5's first video. Okay, so today is Wednesday. We have gotten our reset in EU, despite the longer maintenance, just like in NA. And I wanted to start the new patch with something new for once. What is this? We have on the screen something that is not my evoker for the first time in a couple of months, basically. I decided to do something that I'm also interested in, I guess experiencing, which is a new series about climbing with the plebs to try to reach Keystone Master, and then eventually also we're gonna update this to climbing to Keystone Hero while playing a different class and a different spec and also a different role altogether. We are doing this as a way to experience what most players are also going to experience, the more average and general part of the player base, because when you play with your main character in a Mythic raiding guild and you put a lot of hours right in the release of the season to do a lot of Mythic Plus, you start ahead of the curve, basically. You get a lot of item level, you get up in high keys of Mythic Plus quite early, so now your main character is 416 item level. It has a whole bunch of high item level pieces, almost all the tier set in Mythic item level, so it's definitely not what the average player base is going to be having right now, and also it's not going to be the same experience when it comes to PuGing at the moment, since I am now past 2800 rating and most of the keys are going to be in the 21 plus range on my main character. So I wanted to try something different, something that many players are lamenting as well. So the experience in the PuGing world, even though, trust me, the experience in the PuGing world at high keys is just as miserable. I wanted to go back and play another character without many of the advantages you get from being in a Mythic raiding guild and having played since the start of the season. Very important, because the character I have chosen, I essentially started playing it a week ago. So I am, by all accounts, behind on everything. I have not kept up with the vault every week. I have not done things to prepare for the launch of the season. I've not run double week of Mythic Zeros for 372 item level gear. I have not farmed all the way up to Renown 25 to get a couple of 376 and 389 item level pieces. Before the start of the season, I haven't done the Cobalt Assembly grind to get a 389 item level ring. I had no time to grind a whole bunch of Mythic Plus keys to get a whole bunch of Primal Chaoses to get my Sparks to be able to craft a whole bunch of high item level gear. And also, of course, I am starting from 0 rating in Mythic Plus, meaning that I am a pleb without any experience and without any type of feature which might entice players to invite me in keys, much like many players might find themselves in right now. So also, just to make sure I look the dirtiest, plebiest and hoboest character possible, I have not registered my character to my account on Raider.io. Which means usually when you look at some characters' rating in the looking for group tool, you can see, thanks to the Raider.io add-on, if they are somebody else's alt character. You can see, even though they have a very poor 700 rating, you can see that their main character has 2600. So, you know, they are from a player who has played the game already and is pretty high up in terms of experience about Mythic Plus. In my case, it's not gonna be like that. In my case, my character is detached from my main account on Raider.io, so he won't be able to leech off of my main's experience to get invited into keys. Also, he's not part of the same guild of my main character, and also he doesn't have a name anywhere resembling my own, just in case someone would invite it just because it sounds like IZEN. So, to start this journey, I had to decide, first of all, of course, which role I wanted to play. That was the first question before I even started to think about all of this. And because I wanted to try to keep it as close as possible to the PuG experience, the casual life experience, I didn't want to play another healer. Because, of course, I already know. I want to believe quite a bit about healers when it comes to Mythic Plus in particular, so I didn't want to play another healer in Mythic Plus. The choice was about playing a DPS or playing a tank. So, to try to make it as new of an experience as possible for me, I wanted to go for tanks, because they are the role I have played the least over the course of the last few expansions, especially since Mythic Plus launched in Legion. In the first expansion of Mythic Plus, I have played no tanks in Legion. In BFA, I very briefly tried to play Prot Warrior when Prot Warrior was OP, and I haven't really done much of any relevant key back then. And then in Shadowlands, I have played, again, mostly healers. I have played Resto Shaman and Holy Paladin, so not really any tanking was being done there. But on the other hand, I have played DPS. In Legion, I was playing Rogue, I was playing Shadow Priest. In BFA, I was playing Elemental Shaman, I was playing Red Paladin even. So I already had multiple experience with multiple classes and specs, including the difference between ranged and melee DPS. So the only one that was left for some significant lack of experience from me was the tank role. Now, because I am in a disadvantageous position, okay, I am starting late, I have no experience to back myself up, I cannot leech off of my main and show off my main experience to get invited into keys, I have very low item level, I have no previous grinding done on the character, so I am quite low. I wanted, at the same time, to not pick a very flavor of the month character, very flavor of the month spec, so warrior was out of the picture, and at the same time I didn't want to make it so much harder for myself to get invited to keys, like for example trying to play Guardian Druid or something like Brewmaster Monk. Even though Brewmaster Monk's stocks might be rising in this patch, it might take a while for people to realize, so I wanted to go for something in the middle, and something in the middle in the end was Blood Death Knight. That was the choice. A spec that I have never played, a spec that I have never basically done Mythic Plus with at any relevant level. I remember this character more or less being leveled in Worlds of Draenor for the sole purpose of becoming a garrison bot to make money through the mission table. That was it. That was the purpose of this character. So I started leveling it up with the intent of making some tanking in Mythic Plus. So starting this journey, my thought process was, okay, I need to level up this character, and then I need to get enough item level to get into Mythic Plus. Alright, where do we start with? So after the leveling up and getting to level 70, I had somewhere in the realm of 320 or something item level, 330 a little bit later on after finishing a whole bunch of quests at the start of your max level experience. And things were a bit different from when I leveled up my characters at the start of the expansion, my Druid and my Evoker, because, you know, back then what you were doing was a whole bunch of heroics and then a whole bunch of Mythic Zeros. You were doing your world tour of Mythic Zeros. However, time has passed, it's been almost 2 months, I have been spoiled in getting good and high item level from Mythic Plus, so I had no time nor motivation to start doing a whole bunch of Mythic Zeros when I knew Mythic Plus was available. So my plan was, as soon as I got to max level, try to pick up as high of an item level as possible from the open world, start looking on the map for world quests, giving me some high enough item level gear, go back to the Obsidian Citadel to pick up the weeklies there, since they can reward you with pretty good item level, to try to get at 342 item level, which was the cutoff to start entering heroics. So you get to the cutoff of 342, then you do a bunch of heroics which award you with 359 item level, so you start getting close to a good enough item level to start entering Mythic Plus. I found a reasonably quick way to do so by using the crafting order system. That's right, the public crafting order system. I am one of the few players in this game who actually used the public crafting order, because I used a whole bunch of plate crafted gear from the crafting order because it was very, very cheap. You know, it was some 2,000 or 3,000 gold to get a whole bunch of 343 item level gear crafted, which is right enough, right above the cutoff to be able to enter heroics. So that helped a whole bunch, with a few more world quests giving me gear, with a few pieces of gear from the Obsidian Citadel and some of the rares, picking up gear from them. I spent some half an hour doing some grind of the Primal Storms, something that wasn't available at launch of this expansion, do the Primal Storms, get some elemental overflow, and the pieces you could get from the event were at 359 item level before even upgrading them to 385. Even the base blue version at 359 was good enough for my character, so that was the plan, to get enough item level to start getting into heroics. So that was done in a couple of hours at best. It wasn't that long that it took me to get enough item level to be able to enter heroics. Once I did that, it was time to spam some heroics. Not really any complicated strategy there, simply just keep queuing up for heroics. Also, I am a tank, which means the queues for heroics were pretty fast. So just go in heroics and start spamming heroics to get as much 359 item level gear you can. I also thought this was going to be useful for my character to start getting used to the character, right? Knowing basically how to play the character. Also knowing which resources I should use for my character. And by resources, of course, I mean things like weak auras, things like target plates, to try to get used to these type of features on my new character, as well as getting the muscle memory going, getting the buttons, the key bindings framed in my mind by doing a bunch of heroics first. That was the first part of playing this new character, because that's ultimately the most important part. Getting to know, getting to understand how you are playing, how this character even works before you start playing in Mythic Plus. And even though I choose a middle of the way class between the very flavor of the month and the underplayed, Blood Death Knight is amongst the hardest tanks to play at a very good level because of how risky it likes to play, because of how low it likes to go in HP before he heals himself back up to full, because of the amount of cooldowns you have to choose from, also because of the fact of being very slow, very immobile, so the positioning and the moving around on a DK tank is much slower, much more lumbering and crawling towards wherever you want to go compared to a warrior or compared to a vengeance demon hunter or a monk even, that can move around much more freely. So you have a few more things to learn when playing a Blood Death Knight, and heroics turned out to be a good training ground to learn a little bit more about the class and the spec. Now, after a few more hours of doing heroics, I believed I was ready to start getting into Mythic Plus. You know, I got past 350, closer now to 360 item level. I thought by then I could start getting into some low-end Mythic Plus keys, you know, the +4, the +6 level even. I think that's when you could start getting invited in Mythic Plus keys, especially, as mentioned, because I was a tank. I think if this was the start of the expansion, people would have been much more picky in the item level they were requiring of their characters. You know, Mythic +4 awards 379 item level, Mythic +6 awards 382, Mythic +7 awards 385. So at the start of the expansion, people were expecting players to be already at 370 minimum item level, or very close to that. So it's definitely also thanks to being almost 2 months into the expansion that you can start queuing up into Mythic Plus keys at just 350 or 355 item level. It would have been much harder to be invited at the start of the expansion with this type of item level. So this is where we are at the start of this journey, right before we begin entering Mythic Plus on this new tank to play. So I am excited to start this new journey and this new series about playing a different character from scratch, from being, you know, quite far back, the normal power curve of a character from the start of the expansion, you know, rather than watching the game from my high tower of a privileged snob Mythic Raider at very high item level and very high Mythic Plus rating. I get to go back, I get to disguise myself as a pleb in the middle of the masses and observe how these people do things in lower keys. That's what we're going to be seeing in the next few episodes of this series about entering the first few lower levels of Mythic Plus keys on this new tank character. For now, this is where we are stopping for our series on episode 1, choosing my character, choosing the class and the spec, and doing the first few tasks before you are ready to enter Mythic Plus. Now, with this out of the way, it's time to leave each other on this Wednesday, on this reset day and new patch day in EU as well. Thanks, of course, as usual, to all of my Patreon supporters for contributing and helping the growth of this channel. You can still, of course, don't worry, support in other ways that don't include having to spend money. Liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself, are more than fine enough ways to show your support. You can also support by following me on Twitter. That will be helpful as well, even more so if you want to get notified about any of the announcements I would like to give to all of my viewers or whenever I go live on stream, for example. And lastly, of course, I should be supposedly go live every once in a while on my stream, generally starting from 10 PM Central European Time, 1 PM Pacific and 4 PM Eastern US time zones. With this said and done, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, this is the second time in the last couple of weeks or so that I woke up at around 11 AM. Something is wrong with me.